What's up, Packer fans? I'm Untitled Chapter, host of Monologue Packers podcast. Thank you for being here, and thank you for checking out this video. Boy, I felt like that bye week was never going to end, but it finally has ended. We are 3 days away, or depending on when you watch this, it's right around the corner. It's time. It's the two best teams in the NFC, Green Bay Packers, San Francisco 49ers. They're facing off. Winner gets to be the head of the NFC, at least for 1 week. But I'm here to break it all down. If this is your first time tuning in, I got game thoughts, I have final previews, I have keys to victory. I'm pretty excited. This is a big game for the Green Bay Packers. Without further ado, it is time to pour ourselves another Packers podcast. So thank you guys once again for tuning in and checking out the video. If you have not subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I don't know what you were waiting for. 844 subscribers. When I get to 1,000, I'm giving away the canvas behind me. It's real simple. It doesn't cost you any money. Just click that subscribe button. Maybe even hit the like button if you truly want to go the extra yard and say how much you appreciate the Green Bay Packers, or essentially what I am doing here on this show, on this YouTube channel. But yeah, the Packers are coming off their bye week, and it seems like it's been a while. I've had a couple, I've had 2 live Q&As over the last, I guess, week and a half since the Packers wrapped up their game against the Carolina Panthers. Obviously getting that win, moving to 8-2, heading into the bye week. I've done enough discussion about Carolina. We are looking forward to the San Francisco 49ers game. I am looking forward to the San Francisco 49ers game. So let's get started. Let's get moving. Let's what am I waiting for? So game preview, here we go. Sunday will mark the 67th meeting between the Green Bay Packers and the San Francisco 49ers, with Green Bay leading the overall series, 36 wins to 30 losses, and there is, yes, 1 tie wrapped in there as well. Since 1996, we're talking about Brett Favre times. We're talking about the Super Bowl hat that I have off to my right here. Green Bay has gone 15-5 in that time span. However, San Francisco has won the 4 out of the last 6 meetings against these two teams, mostly due in part to a man, the myth, the legend, a guy you may have heard of. Colin Kaepernick was kind of the victor, or was the victor, and kind of the Achilles heel for the Green Bay Packers, more specifically winning all 4 games between 2012 and 2014. And that was when Aaron Rodgers was coming hot off of that Super Bowl victory. 2011, we're 15-1. We felt like we had Super Bowl aspirations year in and year out, and it seemed like those 49ers were more than capable of sticking with us. They've had a little downturn over the past couple of years, but hey, they're building things back up again. They're making themselves a better team, and I'm gonna foreshadow a lot of what I want to talk about, but I think this is the beginning of something special as far as a renewed rivalry between these two teams. So the history between these teams, if you can't tell already, the history between these teams is one of my favorites. Some of my earliest memories of watching football boil back down to Brett Favre battling against Steve Young. My dad used to take trips out to California. He was in the stadium out there in California, out there watching the San Francisco 49ers battle over those battles between Brett Favre and Steve Young. Vince Young. There were no battles between Brett Favre and Vince Young. Let's just make that apparently obviously clear. For 4 straight years, from 1996 to 1999, these two teams would meet in the playoffs. And of course, in 1998, these two teams met in the NFC Championship game, with the winner stamping their ticket to the Super Bowl. And of course, Green Bay came away with that victory. But San Francisco did get the best of Green Bay in the 1999 playoffs, when they threw a last-second touchdown pass to Terrell Owens to win that game 30-27. These teams went back and forth quite a lot, and it was a lot of fun to watch. It was even fun to watch in those, I guess, 2012 to 14 era when Colin Kaepernick was playing. These always have been fun matchups. And there's a lot of history between these teams, and I love this matchup. I love it. I love this matchup. So this will be the first and most certainly not the last matchup between head coaches Matt LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan. These young coaches worked together back in Houston. That was in 2008 and 2009. That was when Matt LaFleur first got his foot in the door in the NFL. They were coaching together at Washington from 2010 to 2013 under Kyle's father, Mike Shanahan, and in Atlanta they coached together once again in 2015 and 2016. The two of them, with the combination of Sean McVay, the head coach of the Los Angeles Rams, all came from that same coaching tree, and it'll be a lot of fun to watch these two competitors, Shanahan and LaFleur, go at each other and kind of make some, I guess, a rivalry renewed out of this matchup between these two guys. Outside of the Shanahan and LaFleur side of things, Mike LaFleur, Matt's brother, is San Francisco's passing game coordinator, and Kyle actually refused to let Mike leave the San Francisco 49ers when Matt was trying to recruit him to Green Bay in the offseason and build his coaching staff. He wanted to keep Mike as part of his staff in San Francisco, and maybe it's for the better. Maybe brothers inside the same organization might not always be the best thing, but regardless, these guys are gonna get a chance to coach against each other on Sunday Night Football. So it goes without saying, Sunday's game will have huge playoff implications down the stretch, and Aaron Rodgers said it best Wednesday when he said, "The way I see it, we're going to have to win one of these games in San Francisco at some point." And essentially that tells me he acknowledges the importance of this game, and that a win would go a long way. A win on Sunday would go a long way to having the 49ers coming to Green Bay in January versus the Packers having to go back out to San Francisco in January. As for the Niners, talking about the importance of this game for them, it is very possible that San Francisco wakes up on Sunday morning as the number 1 seed in the NFC and goes to bed as the number 5 seed in the NFC. Yeah, with a loss against Green Bay and a Seattle victory over the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday, Green Bay would be the number 1 team, Seattle would move up to the number 2 team in the NFC, and San Francisco would drop all the way down to that 5th seed. So there's a lot of things kind of weighing on this game for those 49ers, and both these teams cannot afford to lose. When you have Seattle chasing San Francisco and you have Green Bay and they have the Vikings chasing Green Bay, the stakes are extremely high. Neither team can afford a loss, and essentially this will be a playoff atmosphere at Levi Stadium on Sunday night. I do believe this, like I said before, this will be the beginning of a renewed rivalry between these teams. Regardless of the victor, this is going to be one hell of a fun game to watch. But before we dive into that any further, let's talk about some injuries. So I've said it before on the show, and I will say it again, a healthy Green Bay Packers team is a dangerous Green Bay Packer team, and the Packers came out of their Week 11 bye week with a completely healthy roster, and I can't remember a time in recent memory, at least, the Packers have had such a healthy roster this late into the season, especially sitting at an 8-2 record. It really bodes well for them. There are a few veterans that did sit out of practice. We're talking about our Jimmy Grahams. We're talking about our Bakhtiaris or Bulagas. These guys were afforded a little bit of time off, not injury related, but they didn't give a full participation throughout the week of for practice. But the 49ers, on the other hand, they will not be afforded the same luxury that the Green Bay Packers have. Hands down, the single most important weapon, tight end George Kittle, who has sat out the last 2 weeks, did not practice on Wednesday. He was a limited participant in practice Thursday and will more than likely be a game time decision. And with the absence of Kittle, it would be an absolutely huge advantage for Green Bay, who has struggled so far this season to cover up talented tight ends. And before his injury, Kittle was looking like one of the best, if not the best, tight ends in the league. It does seem like all signs are pointing to Kittle playing in this game. I would be shocked. Just with the fact that he was out on the practice field Thursday, that I would be absolutely shocked if they chose to sit him. He also knows the importance of this game, and I think he will be ready to go. But outside of Kittle, 6 other players have not practiced yet this week for the 49ers, or I'll kind of paraphrase that a little bit. And listening to Kyle Shanahan, all these guys are going to be game time decisions at some point. So you look at wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders, who the Packers actually played back in week 3 when he was still a member of the Broncos. He is dealing with a rib injury that could limit his production, but he was limited on Thursday. He was listed as a limited participant on Thursday. Defensive end D Ford, who is as an absolute game changer on the defensive front, is dealing with a quad/hamstring injury. He sat out of practice Wednesday, Thursday. Their top running back, and I'll get to that in a moment, and Matt Breida is dealing with an ankle injury and missed the last 2 games against the Cardinals, sat out Wednesday and Thursday. And kicker Robbie Gould continues to sit out with a right quadricep injury as well. Gould, too, has missed the last 2 weeks, and had he been healthy, the 49ers very likely or probably would still be an undefeated team. But however, backup kicker I think it's Corey McLaughlin, missed a 47-yard game-winning field goal in overtime against Seattle with 3 minutes and 10 seconds remaining. And we all know that Seattle then went on to go down the field and win that game, which creates a great segue to review the 49ers up to this point. So sitting at a 9-1 record, San Francisco sits at the very top of the NFC, and they are one of only 2 teams in the NFL with at least 9 wins on this season. The other, of course, being the New England Patriots. As I mentioned, they fell a field goal short in overtime of being the only undefeated team in the NFL. However, the 49ers might be the most underrated or overrated 9-1 team in the history of the NFL. A lot of that talk stems from the strength of opponents San Francisco has had to face so far this year. And of their 9 wins, their opponents have had a combined record of 27-53. So they haven't played a ton of quality opponents. We're talking about Tampa Bay, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Washington, Arizona Cardinals twice. Arguably their best wins out of those 9 came against the Los Angeles Rams in Week 6, which was a bit of a coming out party for these guys that maybe San Francisco might be a real force to be reckoned with. And then they absolutely did just an ass kicking of the Carolina Panthers back in Week 8, winning that game 51-13. Although, after seeing Carolina just lose that embarrassing game against Atlanta last week, 29-3, perhaps Carolina might not be as good as we once thought, and they could kind of fall into that reign of opponents that just have been rather easy for the 49ers to face. But as I've said countless times on this show since the very infancy of this channel, winning in the NFL is never easy, and teams just don't stumble into a 9-1 record. That takes a lot of perseverance. It takes some great coaching. It does take some talented play, and it does require the ball to kind of fall in your favor or bounce in your favor at least a couple times throughout the game. One way or another, we will know who the San Francisco 49ers are over the next couple weeks. After their matchup against Green Bay on Sunday, San Francisco has back-to-back road games against the Ravens and the Saints, and then they close out the season with a home game against the Rams before traveling to Seattle to end the season, Week 17. And Seattle, the only team who has bested the Niners so far this season, may have created the blueprint for success, and that blueprint is essentially boils down to 2 things. So shut down the run. Don't shut down the rim. Don't ever do that. Keep the rim going, but shut down the run. And spoiler alert, that is one of my keys to victory. And make Jimmy G beat you through the air. So San Francisco has the second most rushing yards in the league heading into Week 12. And it hasn't been because of one single player, but rather a running back by committee approach by Kyle Shanahan. The 49ers have 3 running backs who have over 300 yards rushing this season. They have 4 running backs that have combined for 1,400 yards on the ground and 11 touchdowns. And as I mentioned above, their leading rusher with 542 yards, Matt Breida, could be inactive for Sunday's game. However, I don't think that the Packers can look past that. I don't think with one guy out, they still have to focus their attention on the run. San Francisco has more than enough talent in their backfield to step up. And even though they only combined for 27 rushing yards last week against Arizona, that doesn't prove that the running backs are not capable without their leading rusher sitting on the sideline. In fact, talking about that 27-yard performance, the 49ers rush game struggled the last 2 weeks, particularly against Seattle and the Cardinals, with a combined 113 yards, and Jimmy G had to step up at that point. He kind of had to put the team on his back, a la Greg Jennings. Greg Jennings had to put the team on his back, if you remember that old Madden clip. Of course you remember that old Madden clip. And Jimmy G, he did pretty well in those circumstances. He managed to go 1-1 through those 2 weeks with some porous running ability, and Jimmy Garoppolo actually ranks higher. I don't know why I'm going through this with you, but he ranks higher than Aaron Rodgers with a 57.7 quarterback rating, and I have no idea how they calculate that garbage. If you want to look at a quarterback rating system and tell me that Jimmy G ranks higher, therefore he is a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers, you are out of your mind on how your calculations work in that system. But his 10 interceptions is tied for 4th most in the league, and when he's under pressure, he hasn't exactly looked good all season long. I think the cracks in his abilities really kind of showed in that Seattle game a couple weeks ago, and then last week He played okay. I think he had 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. They kind of squeaked that one out against the Cardinals, but he's not going to have that luxury. I'd like to believe he won't have that luxury against Green Bay on Sunday night. I think Garoppolo is a solid quarterback. I think he is smart. I think he is accurate. I think he fits really well into Kyle Shanahan's offense, but he is still relatively raw and hasn't been battle tested like quarterbacks like Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, or Tom Brady, or even Aaron Rodgers. So I think if you get pressure on Jimmy G, if you put the game in his hands, that should bode well for the Green Bay Packers. In regards to their defense, the 49ers rank as one of the best defenses in the NFL. And some of this might have to do with the quality of opponent that they've played so far up to this point, but the stats don't necessarily lie. They've given up the second fewest yards per game at 253. They have the second fewest points per game allowed with 15.5. They do have the fewest pass yards allowed per game with 142, which Aaron Rodgers is going to definitely throw for more than 142. And they have the third most takeaways in the league with 22. In the offseason, they went out and they improved their team. They signed defensive end Dee Ford off of the Kansas City Chiefs, who has amassed 6.5 sacks, and then they went and drafted defensive end Nick Bosa, who has 7 sacks of his own. You look at defensive ends Eric Armstead and DeForest Buckner. They too have been creating chaos in that backfield with 8 sacks and 5 sacks respectively. And when they are not getting themselves to the quarterback, you have a guy like veteran Richard Sherman who can still ball, regardless of what you'd like to believe. He is getting older in age, but the guy still goes out there and ball. He leads the team with 3 interceptions this season, and they have a total of 7 players in that defense who have at least 1 interception so far this season. This defense plays fast. This defense plays aggressive. Frankly, it took every ounce of Russell Wilson's magic to overcome them a couple weeks ago, and they deserve just as much praise for being 9-1 as that offense does, and for being where they are. So that kind of wraps it up. This is going to be a really good team. That, like I said, it's no surprise to anybody. Can the Packers beat them? I'll get to that in a second. But before we go down that road, let's talk about my 3 keys to victory. So these keys to victory, if you haven't guessed what they are already, then quite frankly, you have not been paying attention to this video or the words that are coming out of my mouth. But key to victory number 1 is to stop the run game. Now the Packers have, if they have shown any weaknesses amongst their defense so far this season, it's been that run defense, that defensive line up front, allowing running backs to get going and get yards on that defense throughout the game. So they have stepped up when they've had to. You look at games against Ezekiel Elliott. You look at how they were able to contain Christian McCaffrey. They did relatively well against Dalvin Cook in week 2, even though they gave up a 75-yard touchdown. They held Dalvin Cook to a relatively low rushing game or performance compared to what he's put up this season. So like I said, Green Bay is not going to be able to kind of sit on their heels a whole lot with multiple running backs being kind of put into that rotation, coming off the bench fresh. They're going to have to figure out how to stop that run game. And like I said, put the ball in Jimmy Garoppolo's hands. If you can put the ball in Jimmy G's hands, that allows you to take your 2 best players on that defense in Za'Darius and Preston Smith, get to the quarterback, force turnovers. And like I said, if this is a tight game, if this is a contested game, and the ball is being thrown by Jimmy Garoppolo, I have more confidence that the Packers will come away with an interception than Jimmy G throwing himself a touchdown. Key to victory number 2 is blatantly clear when these big games roll around. And when you look at the Packers' success so far this season, when they have been able to get themselves a victory, they have won the turnover battle. The games where they have not won the turnover battle, with the Philadelphia Eagles, they did beat the Detroit Lions, and that's the only game where they lost the turnover battle and were still able to come away with the victory. And then you look at that Los Angeles Chargers game, they couldn't control that I guess turnover battle situation. So when you head down to San Francisco, you have to be able to know that you have to protect the ball. Again, the San Francisco 49ers have the 3rd most takeaways with 22 total on the season. I think Aaron Rodgers will do a dandy job of protecting his football and making sure that he is throwing in clean lanes or just getting it, not doing risky situations like Aaron Rodgers does. But then you have to look at our running backs who have been ultra successful at holding on to the ball. Knock on wood, because I am a superstitious kind of guy. They've gone 4 straight games without a fumble. That is I don't know if it's a record, but it's a really great streak for those running backs. They have to protect it. They have to hang on to it. On the flip side, they have to find ways to take the ball away from San Francisco. If you can take the ball away from San Francisco, that will turn the momentum in that stadium. It gives you extra possessions, obviously, and it moves on to my 3rd key to victory, which is kind of a clusterfuck of so many different thoughts, and that is to control the time of possession. So there are so many things that Green Bay needs to do to come away with a victory against a 9-1 football team on the road, and controlling the time of possession encapsulates so many things. And here's a couple of things that kind of factor into this, right? So they have to establish the run game themselves. I think you look at a guy like Aaron Jones, who has 14 total touchdowns this season. He has been the workhorse, the bell cow for that football team, for that running back game. And I expect to see him and his workload continue to increase a little bit more as this season moves on. Now, don't forget about Jamal Williams. I think a lot of Aaron Jones' success has been able to come at the fact that he hasn't had to run 30 times a game, 25 to 30 times a game. They've been able to put Williams in there to get some hard-fought yards. And if you want to control that time of possession, obviously you need to establish a run game 100%. The second thing that goes into that time of possession is to limit offensive penalties. The Packers have 25 combined false start / delay of game penalties so far this year, which leads the league. And Matt LaFleur made a point throughout this bye week and in his press conference on Monday, talking about the fact that in these final 6 games, they not only need to speed up the tempo, but they have to quit shooting themselves in the foot with false starts or holding or wherever else that offensive line is finding themselves getting flagged for. I think without a doubt, our offensive line has been incredible. They've done a really great job. You look at our tackles, you look at Elton Jenkins, who ranks as one of the best guards in the NFL, but you have to limit those offensive penalties because in an environment like San Francisco, you can't afford to have 1st and 15, 1st and 20, or 2nd and 20, whatever the case and scenario might be, to move you backwards and make your job a lot harder. The third and final thing that controls the time of possession is protecting Aaron Rodgers. Again, these guys come at the quarterback constantly. I think if Dee Ford does miss the game, this will be a huge advantage for Green Bay as well. It's very possible that Dee Ford does not play, but if he is in there, or even if he's not in there, you have to be mindful of that pass rush and protecting Aaron Rodgers and keeping him upright and allowing Aaron Rodgers to do what Aaron Rodgers does is a huge key to victory. I think one thing, talking about this time of possession, is that there's no secret formula to beating Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. It really does boil down to controlling the time of possession, and you can't let any team dictate that away from you. If you can keep Aaron Rodgers off the field, he's obviously not going to be able to score a whole lot of points. So control the time of possession, win the run game, protect Aaron Rodgers, don't get any offensive penalties. Those are my 3 key to victories. It is time for my game prediction. So after all of that talking, after all those statistics, after my thoughts on how this game shakes out, how do I see this game unfolding and who do I see as the victor? Well, without further ado, I have the Packers winning 31-24, and there's a couple of thoughts behind this. I think the Packers, obviously, the team will be fresh and ready to go coming off their bye week. They are healthy. They've had a chance to rest. The defense was looking a little bit sluggish heading into the bye week, and I think that added rest will add some momentum and possibly even make them look like that defense that we saw in the first couple weeks of the season when they were looking like one of the top defenses in the league. Green Bay are 8-0 when holding opponents under 24 points this year, and Green Bay should come into this game, like I said, rested. Outside of that, so I have the 49ers at 24 points. The Packers are 8-0 with 24 points and under. I like the odds of there's something else that I really like with this game. Outside of getting the running game going and having Aaron Rodgers protected, I do think this could be one of those games, or the breakout game for Davante Adams this season. If I'm going to double down my bets, I will go on a limb, if I can get my words out of my mouth. I will go out on a limb and say Davante Adams will have not 1 but 2 touchdowns in this game, and that will just do wonders for what we can expect from this offense as the season moves forward. So Packers win 31-24. They move to 9-2 on the season. They do grab that number 1 seed, and then the rest of the season gets a little bit dangerous or exciting, more exciting, if it's even possible to get more exciting as the rest of the season goes on. So thank you guys for tuning in, and always thank you for checking out this video. Kickoff, the game was flexed. If you didn't know that by now, shame on you, but the game was flexed. Kickoff is at 7:20 Sunday night, NBC. Waited all day for Sunday night. Carrie Underwood, sing it away. I'm not gonna sing right now. But I will be live on Monday night, 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. We will discuss the outcome of the game, whether it's good or bad. I will tune in live, and I've gotten my whole live stream thing kind of working a little bit better. I drilled a hole in my floor up there, and I have an Ethernet cable running down to the computer. So there's no more stuttering. There's just a whole lot of good times with questions and hopefully cheers of joy with the Packers finding themselves on the winning side on Sunday night. So again, thank you guys for checking out this video. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and until next time, I will see you on the internet. Go Pack Go.